We're counting down the 16 animals scientists have declared extinct, but just won't stay gone. From birds spotted decades after their obituary, to creatures rediscovered by camera traps, DNA surprises, or local legends that don't quit, each entry on this list reveals how extinction is much less final than we thought. The criteria? Only species with credible sightings, physical clues, or even the occasional unexpected comeback qualify. No cryptids, no fairy tales, just real biological mysteries. The further we go, the wilder the evidence gets, and by the top spots, even skeptics might question the meaning of extinct. Let's start with number 16. Number 16, the Ivory-billed woodpecker. Last officially confirmed in 1944, this bird is the Elvis of the ornithology world. Everyone wants a sighting, but nobody can agree if it's still performing. Scientists call time of death after decades with no verifiable records, despite armies of birders combing the swamps for a glimpse or a signature double knock. Then, in 2004, a shaky camcorder video from Arkansas sent the birding world into a frenzy. The footage showed a large woodpecker flashing white on its wings, and the debate that followed was less about birds and more about frame rates and pixel analysis. By 2023, new drone recordings surfaced. Another big woodpecker, another round of arguments. Some experts swear the flight pattern matches the ivory bill. Others say it's just a pileated woodpecker with a good lawyer. The real kicker? There are still 500,000 acres of unexplored bottomland forest out there. Prime real estate for a bird that hates paparazzi. If a single blurry video can keep a species on life support for decades, what happens when the sightings start piling up? Number 15, the Thylacine, better known as the Tasmanian tiger. Officially, the last one died in 1936 at Hobart Zoo, pacing behind bars while the world shrugged. Australia wrote it off after a century of bounty hunting, sheep panic, and habitat loss. But the Thylacine has a habit of refusing to stay dead, at least if you ask the locals. Since 1936, more than 300 people have reported seeing a striped, dog-like animal slinking through Tasmania's highlands. These aren't just overexcited tourists. In 1982 alone, a government task force logged 67 reports, many filed by seasoned bushwalkers and wildlife biologists who can tell a wallaby from a wishful thought. The sightings keep coming. Fresh ones in 2023, some from remote logging roads, others from hikers who swear they saw the telltale stiff tail and bouncing gait. The real wild card? Nearly 40% of Tasmania is still wilderness, a patchwork of misty forests and tangled valleys where even Google Maps gives up. If the Thylacine is out there, it's got 15,000 square miles to work on its disappearing act. A species with no confirmed photos since the Great Depression, but hundreds of persistent witnesses. Welcome to the world's stealthiest marsupial, and possibly its best at dodging both extinction and the paparazzi. Number 14, the Javan tiger. Officially pronounced extinct in 1976, this big cat was last seen slinking through the tangled rainforests of East Java, leaving behind only grainy photos and even grainier memories. Deforestation and poaching cleared the island faster than a tourist bus at closing time, and by the late 70s, scientists declared the case closed. But Java's highland forests still have secrets, and in 2019, rangers stumbled on something that sent the lab coat scrambling. A tuft of striped hair snagged on a low branch, and a fresh set of paw prints pressed into the mud. Cue the forensics. The hair went from jungle to test tube, into the world of PCR. Polymerase chain reaction, or as some field biologists joke, please check repeatedly. The DNA results? Inconclusive. The sample matched tiger, but not perfectly. Turns out when your reference genome is a faded sample from the 1970s, you're basically playing Guess Who with half the faces missing. Contamination risk, degraded DNA, and lab disputes between local and foreign scientists left the verdict in limbo. Their final statement: we can't rule out Javan tiger, but we can't confirm it either. Meanwhile, Java's mountain forests remain dense, nocturnal, and largely unsurveyed. If a tiger wants to dodge extinction paperwork, this is the place to do it. On Fernandina Island, Galápagos, extinction wasn't supposed to be reversible. The last Fernandina giant tortoise was recorded in 1906, then nothing but volcanic ash, rumors, and a few scattered droppings for more than a century. Scientists logged the species as lost, assuming the island's eruptions and razor-edged lava fields had finished the job. But in 2019, after 10 days of slogging through heat and quicksand-like mud, Ecuadorian park ranger Jeffries Malaga nearly tripped over the impossible. A living female tortoise, later nicknamed Fernanda. Her shell was caked with ash, her attitude pure survivor, and her discovery flipped the script on what extinct really means. DNA analysis at Yale matched Fernanda to the 1906 museum specimen, confirming she wasn't just a look-alike, she was the real deal, the last of her line. For a brief moment, Fernanda became a global celebrity, single-handedly running the PR department for her species. Conservationists now scramble to find her a +1, hoping the world's loneliest tortoise isn't the end of the story. If a 220-pound tortoise can dodge scientists, lava, and time itself for 113 years, maybe hope deserves a longer shelf life. The Yangtze giant soft-shell turtle holds the dubious honor of being the world's rarest turtle, and possibly the most elusive. In April 2019, the last confirmed captive female died in China after a failed artificial insemination, leaving scientists staring down a future with only aging males and no hope for natural reproduction. Officially, that was supposed to be the end of the story. Functionally extinct, the conservation equivalent of a game over screen. Except, in the lakes of northern Vietnam, rumors refused to die. Local fishers whispered about massive turtles surfacing at dawn, and environmental DNA tests in 2018 hinted at least one wild survivor in Xuan Can Lake. Then came the Dong Mo Lake discovery, a wild female, weighing in at 93 kilograms, confirmed in 2020. She too was found dead by 2023. Now with just 2 known males left and no verified females anywhere, every ripple in a remote lake sets off a new round of speculation. These turtles can hold their breath for over 90 minutes and spend most of their lives buried in mud, surfacing only when they feel like it, which apparently is almost never. Sonar surveys struggle to pick up anything in the murky depths, and even the best scientists admit that finding one is like winning the world's slowest lottery. For a species that can live a century, the line between gone and just hiding is a little blurry. Turtles, after all, don't post their location pins. Somewhere in the tangled waterways of Colombia's upper Amazon, locals whisper about the river ghost, a caiman that's supposed to have vanished in 1952, but still pops up in rumor and riverbank legend. Scientists called it extinct after decades with no confirmed records, chalking up its disappearance to hunting, gold mining, and a river system that's more obstacle course than research site. But in 2008, a fisherman pulled a caiman skull from the Rio Paporis. The find sparked a brief surge of excitement. Was this proof the river ghost still haunted these waters? Morphometric analysis, essentially skull detective work, suggested it belonged to a caiman, but with no museum accession, no genetic test, and no published study, the evidence sits in limbo. Meanwhile, indigenous communities report occasional sightings, a shadow slipping off a sandbar, a tail vanishing into the current. With thousands of miles of tributaries, most unpatrolled and uncharted, even the best cartographers have given up trying to draw a complete map. More eraser marks than river lines. In a place where a missing caiman could be hiding behind any bend, the line between extinct and overlooked gets blurry fast. Until a live one surfaces or a skull makes it to a lab, the river ghost keeps its secrets and keeps biologists humble. In the forests of Borneo, Miller's grizzled langur played hide and seek with science for over a century, and won. The last time anyone had a confirmed sighting was 1904. After that, the species disappeared from field guides and eventually from hope itself. Conservationists blamed the usual suspects: logging, farming, and the steady march of palm oil plantations. By the time the new millennium rolled around, Miller's langur was a cautionary tale. One more primate lost to progress, with not a single photo to its name. Then, in 2012, A camera trap in the Wahia forest snapped a picture that sent primatologists scrambling for their reading glasses. There, in high-resolution pixels, was a group of Miller's grizzled langurs, tails curled and faces unmistakable. No rumors, no wishful thinking, just solid proof after 108 years off the radar. The photo made headlines, published in the American Journal of Primatology, and gave the species its first official Photograph 2012 badge. For the record, the camera did what a century of human searching couldn't: stay quiet and patient. Field teams estimate only a handful of individuals survive, scattered in remote corners of East Kalimantan. But that one photo changed everything. Funding, surveys, and a flood of new camera traps for other lost species. When the evidence is this clear, even the most skeptical scientist has to admit, sometimes extinction is just a clerical error. If a camera can bring a monkey back from the dead, what else is out there waiting for its close-up? Don't forget to subscribe. This list is only halfway finished. Number 9, the Caspian tiger. Last spotted in the wild during the 1970s, this big cat once stalked a range stretching from Turkey to northwestern China, a territory so vast it made other tigers look like homebodies. Official extinction was blamed on overhunting, farmland expansion, and a prey base that vanished faster than a steak at a barbecue. For decades, the Caspian seemed destined for the history books, with only faded pelts and a few grainy photos left to prove it ever existed. But the story didn't end in the archives. In the 2020s, geneticists cracked open the tiger family tree and found a twist. Caspian and Siberian tigers are, for all practical purposes, genetic twins. Their genomes are over 99% identical, so close that if you swap their stripes, even their mothers might get confused. Conservationists in Kazakhstan took this as a green light to launch the Return of the Tiger project, aiming to reintroduce Siberian tigers into the old Caspian range. It's the biological equivalent of rebooting Tiger 2.0 with your cousin's source code. Not everyone is cheering. Local herders aren't thrilled about the idea of apex predators making a comeback in their backyard, and debates over land use have turned every planning meeting into a high-stakes chess match. Still, the science is hard to ignore. If the Caspian tiger's DNA lives on in its Siberian relatives, is extinction just a technicality? Or does it take more than a genetic match to bring a ghost back to life? Next up, an earthworm that's both rare and, according to legend, smells faintly of lilies. Number 8, the giant Pallas earthworm. First described in the late 19th century, this pale subterranean oddball was last officially recorded in the 1980s, then quietly erased from field guides as the Palouse Prairie vanished under wheat fields and tractors. For decades, no one could find a trace, until 2005, when a soil core sample from deep under a Washington hillside turned up a writhing, ghostly worm over a meter long. 2 more specimens surfaced in 2010 and 2013, each time by digging more than 10 feet into the earth. Turns out, the giant Palouse earthworm spends its entire life well below the reach of shovels, surveys, and most scientific egos. Forget worm charming. If you want to find this species, you need heavy machinery and a lot of patience. Local legend claims the worm smells faintly of lilies, which sounds charming until you realize it also looks like nightmare spaghetti and can spit a mild defense fluid if annoyed. The truth is, most of its original prairie home is gone. Less than 1% remains. But what's left is riddled with tunnels and secrets. Standard surface surveys miss almost everything. So scientists now use soil coring and deep sampling to hunt for survivors. If a 1-meter worm can dodge extinction by burrowing deeper, how many other extinct species are just lying low, waiting for science to catch up? Sometimes, the biggest surprises are lurking right under our feet. Bouvier's red colobus monkey vanished from scientific record in the 1970s, written off as another casualty of war and logging in the Republic of Congo. For decades, the only evidence of its existence was a handful of old museum skins and stories from villagers who swore the monkey still called from the treetops. Then, in 2015, a research team trekking through a remote patch of rainforest uncovered something the textbook said shouldn't exist: fresh monkey remains, unmistakably red colobus, lying in the leaf litter. The find was more than just bones. It reignited the search for a species that had slipped through the cracks of both science and conflict. Armed with audio recorders instead of tranquilizer darts, the team set up camp and listened. Over several nights, they captured a series of loud, distinctive calls, echoing through the canopy. Calls that matched the last known recordings of Bouvier's red colobus from the 1970s. Two primate experts confirmed the match, using acoustic analysis to separate the monkey's unique vocal signature from the jungle's background noise. In a region where camera traps are often stolen or destroyed, and visual sightings are nearly impossible, audio evidence became the gold standard. Civil War had kept biologists out of these forests for 40 years, turning the region into a blank spot on the biodiversity map. It's hard to count monkeys when the only safe field work is done by microphone from a distance. As one researcher put it, war is the ultimate fieldwork excuse. Yet, even in the aftermath, the forest held its secrets, and sometimes the only proof of life is a voice in the dark. If a monkey can survive decades of conflict by staying out of sight, maybe the next animal on the list is hiding in plain sound. Australia's night parrot was last confirmed in 1912. Then it vanished so thoroughly that some experts started calling it the country's best feathered magic trick. For a century, the only proof it ever existed came from old skins in museum drawers, and a handful of bones picked clean by desert winds. Then in 2013, the unimaginable happened. A naturalist snapped a clear photograph of a living night parrot in western Queensland. The bird's yellow-green plumage and blunt tail were unmistakable. A field guide illustration brought to life. 2 years later, researchers managed to capture a live specimen, swab it for DNA, record its calls, and release it unharmed, officially ending its reign as Australia's most wanted avian ghost. The rediscovery triggered a conservation gold rush, but with fewer than 250 individuals estimated to survive, scientists took a cue from spy movies. The exact location of the population is now a closely guarded secret. Researchers signed non-disclosure agreements and blacked out GPS data to keep egg collectors, poachers, and even overzealous birders at bay. The night parrot's postcode? Classified. Even its vocalizations, studied in detail after the 2015 capture, are sometimes withheld from public databases to avoid tipping off would-be trackers. This secrecy has fueled debates in the conservation world. Does hiding the map protect the species, or does it slow down research and public support? For now, the night parrot's best defense is its own ability to stay hidden, and its worst enemy is the attention that comes with being rediscovered. Proof of life is a double-edged sword when you're one of the world's rarest birds. Number 5. The Barbary lion. Once the heavyweight champion of North Africa, this lion prowled the Atlas Mountains and royal courts alike, until rifles, shrinking prey, and a dash of colonial arrogance erased it from the wild. The last confirmed wild Barbary lion was shot in Morocco in 1956. By the 1960s, the species was declared extinct outside of legend and faded menagerie records. But here's where genetics gets to play zookeeper. For decades, zoos across Europe and North Africa kept Barbary lions in their collections, descended from animals gifted to sultans and kings. Most were written off as lookalikes, until genome sequencing entered the chat. Recent studies trace the family trees of lions from the Rabat Zoo and a handful of other collections, revealing genetic markers that match those of the original Barbary population. These are not perfect clones. Centuries of crossbreeding have blurred the lines, but the DNA does not lie. Conservationists have used pedigree reconstruction and genetic modeling to identify lions with the highest percentage of Barbary ancestry, sparking talk of a genetic comeback. If you cannot find a lion in the wild, maybe you can rebuild one in the lab, or at least in a carefully managed breeding program. Still, the Atlas Mountains remain a maze of remote valleys and caves, some barely surveyed since the days of French explorers. Could a wild Barbary lion still be out there, dodging both scientists and safari tours? No one has brought back a photo, but the genes are alive and kicking in captivity. The Barbary lion's body may be missing from the landscape, but its DNA is still roaring in the background. Next up, a marine mammal that left a vacancy in the Caribbean, and some fishermen who refuse to believe in empty seas. Number 4. The Caribbean monk seal. Last officially seen in 1952, this animal was the only seal native to the Caribbean Sea, a living relic with a face that looked permanently unimpressed by human activity. Scientists declared it extinct after decades without a confirmed sighting, blaming overfishing, hunting, and the relentless advance of beach resorts. But the Caribbean isn't just one big vacation brochure. It's a maze of more than 7,000 islands, cays, and reefs, most of them rarely visited, let alone thoroughly searched. In 2008, fishermen working the remote atolls of the Western Caribbean reported encounters with large whiskered seals basking on coral sandbanks. Their descriptions matched the monk seal's distinctive head shape and rolling gait, right down to the awkward shuffle into the surf when startled. These weren't isolated stories. Multiple crews, spread across different islands, reported the same thing within months. Still, no one managed a photo, a flipper print, or a selfie with the world's most elusive beach bum. Survey teams face an impossible task. Thousands of square miles of ocean, scattered with uninhabited islets and hidden lagoons. Dive expeditions can cover only a handful of sites each year, and many atolls are so remote that the only visitors are nesting turtles and maybe a seal that's mastered the art of social distancing. The Caribbean monk seal may be sunbathing where no one sails, haunting a coral labyrinth instead of a museum display. For now, the vacancy sign is still up for the region's only native seal. If a marine mammal can disappear into an ocean of hiding spots, what chance do we have of finding any animal that doesn't want to be found? If you're still searching for hope, or just like a good mystery, now's the time to subscribe. Number 3. The Japanese river otter. Officially pronounced extinct in 2012, this sleek mustelid was last confirmed in the wild back in 1979, after decades of hunting and a post-war pollution hangover wiped out its riverbank hideouts. For years, the only otter action in Japan came from children's books and the occasional museum pelt. But rivers have a way of keeping secrets, and in 2017, scientists decided to check for signs of life that don't require a camera or a lucky sighting. Enter environmental DNA, or eDNA, the scientific equivalent of reading gossip floating in the river. Researchers collected water samples from Hokkaido's remote streams, ran them through qPCR machines, and found genetic traces matching the Japanese otter's mitochondrial signature. Not just once, but in multiple locations. The results were enough to make even the most skeptical biologists raise an eyebrow, though not enough to put the otter back on the census. Here's the catch. eDNA can be a double-edged sword. It's sensitive enough to pick up a single stray strand of fur, but that also means contamination is always lurking. Did a Eurasian otter pass through? Was there a mix-up in the lab? The primer debate raged in peer review, with some arguing the signals could be ancient DNA washed out of sediments, not proof of a living animal. Still, the positives kept coming, and the protocols, deep freezing, negative controls, and careful primer design were solid enough to keep hope alive. Nocturnal, shy, and perfectly built for slipping through dense undergrowth, the Japanese river otter is a master of not being seen. But if its DNA is still drifting downriver, maybe extinction isn't as final as we thought. When the evidence is molecular, the only thing more elusive than the otter might be scientific consensus itself. Number 2. The Formosan clouded leopard. Last confirmed in 1983, this cat once ruled the forests of Taiwan, at least until logging, poaching, and a 13-year camera trap marathon turned up nothing but empty trees. By 2013, scientists had filed the paperwork and moved on. But in 2019, something unexpected happened. Indigenous rangers from the Paiwan and Rukai communities, trained in tracking since childhood, reported seeing a large cat leaping into the canopy and stalking goats along remote ridge lines in Taitung County. These weren't casual hikers. They were seasoned trackers who read snapped twigs, claw marks on bark, and the faintest hint of musk in the air, all with a precision that would make most biologists jealous. Their accounts were detailed and consistent, describing a cat with a long tail and cloud-shaped spots, moving through steep, tangled terrain where outsiders rarely set foot. What makes these reports stand out isn't just the skill of the witnesses, it's their approach. Out of respect for tradition and the animal itself, they didn't try to snap a photo or set a trap. For them, the leopard isn't just an animal, it's a guardian spirit, woven into the boundaries of their villages and the stories of their ancestors. When asked why no one ever gets a picture, one elder shrugged and said, "Cameras blink, elders don't." Skeptics point to the thousands of camera-trapped nights with zero results and call it wishful thinking. But the mountains of central Taiwan are a web of cliffs, ravines, and forests so dense that even GPS signals get lost. A camera can miss what a patient tracker sees, and for now, all the official records still say extinct. But in the forest above Taitung, the old skills haven't faded, and neither has the hope that something wild is still watching from the shadows. When science runs out of batteries, sometimes you have to trust the people who never needed them. Number 1. The Baiji, the Yangtze River dolphin. Last confirmed alive in 2002, this pale, long-beaked mammal once glided through the 3,900-mile artery of China, a river older than most nations. By the turn of the millennium, the Baiji had become a casualty of progress. Pollution, shipping, and a cascade of new dams pushed its numbers to the brink. In 2006, after an exhaustive survey using spotters and sonar swept the river and found nothing, scientists declared the Baiji extinct. Conservation budgets dried up, search teams disbanded, and the world mourned the loss of the so-called goddess of the Yangtze. 10 years later, in August 2016, a shaky cell phone video surfaced online. Shot near Wuhu, hundreds of miles from the last official sighting, it showed a pale dolphin breaking the surface. The clip ricocheted across Chinese social media, igniting fierce debate. Skeptics dismissed it as wishful thinking, but several marine biologists took a closer look. The animal's outline, surfacing style, and beak matched the Baiji's textbook features. The video was grainy and overexposed, lacking a clear close-up, but it was enough to unsettle the scientific consensus. The Chinese Academy of Sciences called the footage credible, but not conclusive. The extinction label stayed. No new expeditions were funded. The original phone file, essential for forensic analysis, never reached the lab. The video lingers in digital limbo, fueling arguments between those who hope and those who doubt. The Yangtze itself is a master of concealment. Its water runs thick with silt, brown and opaque, making sonar nearly useless for anything smaller than a fishing boat. Even advanced technology struggles to find a dolphin determined to stay hidden, especially in a river with countless side channels and backwaters. Relentless shipping further complicates any search, and vast stretches remain unsurveyed. Every few years, rumors ripple through the region. A fisherman glimpses a pale fin, a tourist hears a strange whistle, an old boatman swears he saw the Baiji slip past at dawn. Behind the scenes, politics shaped the extinction call. Some officials wanted to redirect conservation funds to the Yangtze finless porpoise, the Baiji's cousin, still barely hanging on. Others saw the declaration as a way to end a costly, high-profile search. The Baiji became a cautionary tale, a species written off because the river was too vast, the evidence too elusive, and patience ran out. We declared it extinct in 2006. Then someone filmed it in 2016. That's the uncomfortable truth. Maybe the Baiji is truly gone. Or maybe, in a river that keeps its secrets, it's still out there, surfacing just often enough to remind us how little we know about extinction. From the disputed drone footage of the ivory-billed woodpecker to the controversial 2016 video of the Baiji dolphin, this list has taken us across jungles, mountains, and nearly 4,000 miles of river. Across all 16 entries, one thing stands out. Extinction is rarely as final as it sounds. We've seen animals confirmed rediscovered after a century, like the Fernandina giant tortoise and the night parrot, while others, like the Javan tiger or Caribbean monk seal, linger in limbo on the strength of DNA, blurry photos, or the knowledge of people who know their lands best. The common thread is clear: vast unexplored habitats and new technologies, from environmental DNA to camera traps, consistently overturn what science thought it knew. These cases prove that a declaration of extinction is more about what we haven't found yet than what's truly gone. In the world of lost species, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, and as long as mysteries remain, the search continues.